That Dad Games Podcast. I'm Shan.
I'm Eric.
I'm Tucker.
And I'm Lundy.
I put a real weird inflection on this one that time. I'm Eric. I'm going to start every episode doing talking as weirdly as I can. I'll make a different inflection every time, so you guys will never know what I'm going to do. Mixing it up.
This is Spider-Man Part 6. This is the finale, and I'm wearing black.
6.
This is it. Yeah.
It's a lot of Spider-Man talk.
I'm wearing black today because there has been a murder, I declare.
Oh, shoot. I have a Spider-Man shirt and I didn't wear it like an idiot. Yeah. Come on, Eric. Get your head in the game.
But we'll get to it. Aunt May, well, it's a tragedy, but we'll get there very quickly. Eric, you're gonna take us through the outline, and then at the end, I'm gonna take us through some bonus content. Hopefully, it's kind of fun. It might be really stupid, but that's why it's fun.
Yeah. So I like these Spider-Man episodes because it's always like Shan just kind of assumes that I have an outline because I take extensive notes while I'm playing the game. Mm-hmm. And so it'll be like 20 minutes before we're supposed to start recording, and Shan will be like, "You're cool to direct the flow of the car." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Because when we did The Last of Us, it was very much like Shan had like the flow kind of written out, but obviously for Spider-Man, Eric is the go-to guy. So
well, let me explain this. Okay, so when I was going through Spider-Man,
now.
no. So when I was going through Spider-Man, I was writing down the plot points as I was playing it, and then when I'd get to write out the outline, I'd be like, I can't remember based on what I wrote out, what actually happened. I can't, it wasn't enough information. I was like, how is what I wrote out helpful to to writing
Shan's
out questions
and notes. Yeah.
And for The Last of Us, it's like I wrote out very specific things and character motivation and in every single line that people were saying. And here it's just he talked to Yuri and then he swung, and it's like Eric has written out.
Shan's notes are
and Eric has very
detailed moments. He flipped a thing, he talked to a guy. I don't really know.
You have so much more detail, and you also remember this stuff much more better. But I think much more better. But I think where I'm struggling with this game is that it's more plot driven, and I thrive better on the character analysis and the morality conversations and stuff like that. That's more interesting to me. And the plot driven stuff, it's just I keep as soon as I play it, it goes right out my head.
Yeah, I mean, for The Last of Us stuff, it's all very there's lots of complex character motivations and conversations and really detailed cutscenes to pick apart and walk through.
And I'm constantly thinking about it.
Yeah, and you're constantly picking over oh, what did that mean? What's going on here? And I mean, Spider-Man definitely has a fair bit of that, not to the same level or degree as Last of Us at all. It's much more of a fun kind of a lighthearted thing with some heavier moments, but so I get what you're saying, Shan, but I mean, my notes, it's really just I'd make a bullet point of this is this. It says Oscorp Research Facility getting the cure, and then I have a couple of tiny notes beneath it, but it's my notes aren't that detailed. I'm just better at remembering stuff, I guess.
You're better at things than Winston. Winston's a better person.
So, speaking of the Oscorp Research Facility, so we last left off with MJ at the Osborn's penthouse. She gets some information, and they kind of figure out that they're attacking these different Oscorp places, and so they find where Lee and the demons are going to attack is this Oscorp facility where the cure is being held. Or maybe who has the cure right now? I don't remember.
Oh, wait, but was Phoebe there?
But was Phoebe there?
Yes,
she was. So, anyways, not important. So
that's a Parks and Rec reference. It's a deep cut.
It's when
Leslie is running
walking through an episode of Friends. Yeah,
it's
the
telethon.
The telethon.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to stick to Spider-Man. That's what I'm better at. So they go to the Oscorp Research Facility to get the cure from Martin Lee, who's also going there to get the cure and to confront Osborn and all that crazy stuff. And so this is where you have the final confrontation with Martin Lee. It's a really really cool fight. He kind of sucks you into the dark dimension. What do we decide to call it? The negative world, negative dimension. And you have a big fight with like big old demon Martin Lee and a bunch of little demon guys. And it was a big, nice spectacle of a fight. I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts about what goes on with this last confrontation with Lee?
Not necessarily. This just, I really love this fight. And it always reminds me of Hellblade, the final Hellblade fight. For those who played Hellblade, of just
That's
this
a good
like,
reference.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is about that aesthetic, but it just really
it's an arena
with me. Yeah,
with like an onslaught of NPCs.
Yeah, that are just, I don't know, use
relentless.
Death, and yeah,
it's kind of spooky for a Spider-Man game.
Yeah, spooky.
Yeah. They're like skeleton monster
spooky,
ghost demon things.
Scary.
There
it is, 30 Rock.
Spooky, scary.
How many
becoming wolves?
As per usual, how many ridiculous pop culture references can we make for like millennial pop culture references? Parks and Rec, The Office, 30 Rock. It's like sort of old shows that aren't like really old. But
I did The Office already. There's been a murder.
There's been a murder in Savannah.
I do declare. In Savannah.
It's more like molasses dripping out of your mouth.
There's a panhandle accent.
You sound like Forrest Gump.
Yeah. We'll do the Swedish Chef. What province is he from? He's from Sesame Street, dumbass.
Let's just do the whole episode. We'll wind it back and we'll quote the whole episode.
Just
minor crossbows.
I'm not going down for this.
Poor Lundy. Just watching Lundy's face whenever we make Office references, he just glazes over like, oh my gosh, could we just talk about anything else?
We're just persuading him. That's what
I was going to say. Lundy famously has not watched The Office, and
I have tried to watch The Office, and I couldn't get into it.
There's so much fun.
Were you starting in season 1?
I watched like through season 2.
Okay.
And because everybody told me, yeah, season 1's not that great. And
season 1's rough. Season 2, they kind of start to get it. I feel like season 3, they really hit their stride.
It's after season
with most comedies.
No, it's after season 2, episode 10. It's after the mid-season shift because tonally, that's when they realized that they had to cool down on Michael. And so season 2, episode 10 is the Christmas episode. And that's where he's at his most cringeworthy and relentless on being awful. And when they came back from the mid-season,
Yankee swap.
Yeah, Yankee nasty Christmas, right? Yeah. My wife's family does nasty Christmas. I just call it nasty Christmas. But they do it every year, and I just straight up go to a different room and I don't participate. And some of them started respecting me for it. At first, it was like they would talk about it behind my back, and I'm like, no, I don't give a shit. Like, you think you're gonna shame me into doing it? Everybody like goes there and they end up like hating what they get. They have to pretend that they like it, and then they have to get something they don't want so that they can give it to their children. And like everybody's just miserable, and they're spending money on shit that they don't want. Well, and I just call it nasty Christmas, and I don't participate.
Here's the secret: we do
a
white elephant. We do a white elephant with like as part of a, and I think if you have the right parameters, white elephant is what we call it. It's nasty Christmas, Yankee swap, whatever. But white element can be fun. Is white elephant can be fun. Is you have like a $20 limit and you buy dumb things. Like don't buy anything cool or fun. You just buy like something silly and stupid. Like one year I got a trophy that's like an iPod. Like one year I got a trophy that said like best regift ever. And so now, and the next year we brought it back as the white elephant and so it's just like dumb little things that it's like, oh, here's a pair of socks with like Christmas trees and cotton balls on them. And it's like, and that way it's just like a fun activity to do. And it's not like I actually want this kind of a thing. So,
well, they have like 50 people there, and they also,
gosh, that's so many.
And the age range is from like ages 4 to 60 or 70, and so they don't even break it up by age, and so it's just pure chaos of like everybody not getting what they want.
Oh yeah, that's too many people for. I mean, when we do white elephant, it's like 15-ish people. Like, yeah, I feel like that's pretty close. Anyways, off track again. So Spider-Man is fighting Martin Lee. So very cool boss fight. You have a really great confrontation with Lee. It really escalates, and this is, I guess previously is where you discover, like in in Norman's penthouse is where you discover how Martin Lee became Mr. Negative. Did we cover that last time? I don't remember. Did we talk about that?
We went to the penthouse.
Well, I know, but did we talk specifically about how it shows like how Martin becomes Mr. Negative?
We talked about Harry, I think, and
okay. I think we might have glossed over that part. So we'll touch on it now. So when you're at the penthouse, you discover that in a previous episode, Otto talks about an experiment that he thought was morally questionable, and that's what made him decide to leave Oscorp. And so what he was talking about then is the experiment that created Martin Lee, is they were trying to develop a drug to cure Harry. Norman was. And so they were doing some experiments and tests, and one of those was Martin Lee as a child. And they did some experiments on him, which caused him to gain his crazy negative powers. They used an early form of Devil's Breath that caused him to gain his crazy demon powers. And in the process, he accidentally went crazy and killed both of his parents. And Otto was there. You see him like on the recording. So Norman and Otto were there, and Otto says something like, "Oh, what have you done?" or "What have we done?" or something like that. And so that's the point where Otto's like, "I'm done with Oscorp. They're doing some shady stuff. I got to go." And so Martin Lee grows up, and that's why he hates Osborn, is because he's got this like thing built in his head where it's like, you created me, you did this to me, I have to get revenge on you. You're doing all these terrible things to the city because you did them to me, so you must be doing them to everyone else. And also he sees some of the actual like genuinely shady things that Norman does, and so some of his rage is very justified. Some of it is conflated, because has this trauma in his life. But so that's why Martin Lee hates Osborn. So he's there to get the cure to the Devil's Breath for Otto, I think, and to get revenge on Osborn.
Help me elucidate this. So he's mad at Norman because of giving him because of the incident and giving him these powers. But he specifically, doesn't he say that he doesn't blame Norman for killing his parents? He says that he killed his own parents.
I don't remember that detail specifically. I'd have to look it up and see. I don't remember.
I think he does say that he killed his parents, and he blames Norman for basically like, the experiment that caused him to kill his parents. Like, if it wouldn't have been for Norman, his parents would be alive. But
it's also
okay.
He feels he feels the guilt for something that he couldn't control.
It's also interesting he doesn't blame Otto. Otto was there too. I wonder if because after that incident, Otto cut his ties with Oscorp, if Martin was like, oh, good, he realized that was wrong. Maybe I have a friend in him. Because then you see a note like in Otto's secret lab about how Martin Lee, he's known Martin Lee for a while. And so they've been on maybe some level of communication for a minute.
Both going after Norman. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
No.
So anyways, cool boss fight that culminates in you defeating Lee, and you get the cure. And then pretty much as soon as you defeat Lee, Doc Ock comes in and pretty thoroughly beats the crap out of Peter. Like, really, it's kind of like, it's not really gory or bloody, obviously, because Spider-Man, but it's shockingly brutal. Like, grabs him by the head and he's like slamming him into the ground, and it's really like, it's fast and violent and upsetting because he just comes in and he just pounds him like horde. So it does a good job of establishing Doc Ock as like this really imposing villain, this really powerful person. And so he comes in and then is able to, get the cure from Peter, and then he grabs Norman and runs off.
Yeah. It's always interesting to go back through these scenes and be like, no, he knew that was Peter. He knew that point. He knew at that point, and he's still just being absolutely vicious and brutal to him.
Because he warned him. I warned you, Peter, to get out of my way, and you didn't. Yeah.
And so, Peter has to recontextualize that. It's like, oh, wait, you knew when you were trying to kill me then, It's just, I don't know. It would be really hard. And like that final scene when they're fighting each other and he's like, you knew. And I imagine that's the moment when he goes back through all of these scenes and he's like, and you were trying to smash my skull in, and you were trying to hurt so-and-so, and you were trying to do such and such. It's like, you knew and you did all those things to me. That would be devastating.
Yeah, and I mean, there is some level of slight restraint showed, though. Like, because if Otto really perceived Peter as a threat, he could have killed him right there. but there's this still slight level of like, please just stay out of my way. Like this, I'm going to give you one last chance where I'm going to beat you almost to death, but I'm going to leave you alive. This is your last chance. Back off. Like
Sane Otto is still in there somewhere.
Yeah, even just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So. I think that's what makes Doc Ock such a compelling villain. Is there's that little hint of good that's still in him. We've talked about Marvel villains before, of just how there's always this actual like, oh yeah, I kind of see their point. Like they're not just evil to be for evil's sake. They actually have a purpose, and they feel like they are doing some sort of good. But Doc Ock is this. I don't know. He's an interesting villain because there's this starts out with good intentions, then brain kind of gets overridden here with not so much sane thinking, and then there's still that little piece of good that's in him that's still hanging on.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Otto has some genuinely good motivations too. You know, he's like, he wants to do good things. He wants to make New York better. How he does it is not always the right way, is very skewed, and his rage and hatred for Norman clouds some of his better judgment. But like, so it's this mixture of like bad intentions with good intentions, and then a bad means of fulfilling those things, and which is what makes him such an interesting villain.
Well, and just like the relatable frustration with his physical limitations, and how he has the ability to overcome that with his brain, and how he overcompensates for that. It's compelling. It's interesting. It's like, if you had the ability, wouldn't you take advantage of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really like this part. Otto just savagely beats Peter, grabs Norman and the cure, and then heads off to fulfill the final stage of his plan, which is he wants everyone to know, you know, what Norman is, you know, show his true colors, kind of a thing. And so Peter he's very hurt and needs a doctor. So he gets taken back to Feast. And Dr. Michaels, the guy who originally was with the cure, helps to kind of patch him up and heal him. Family doctor, yeah. And he's and he's like, MJ and Miles are there as well, kind of helping him to get what he needs and stuff. And you see a part with MJ just like sees Peter being like put out on a table to be not really operated on, but that he's like almost dead basically, and she's there just like, oh no. Like watching her reaction is pretty devastating in that moment when they're bringing him to Feast and kind of patching him up, and he's in rough shape. So yeah,
so he's nearly dead. How could he be nearly? No, or okay,
mostly dead.
That's the best I could do.
Mostly dead.
Yeah. Bring out your dead. So Monty Python there. These are bad references, but they're
good.
Ones that
How
most
many can you
immediately
do?
come to. Yeah, they're the ones that most immediately come to mind.
He's supposed to be dead.
There you go, another one.
That's a good one. So anyway, I thought it was interesting that he was supposed to be dead, but then Dr. Michaels comes in, and then they just like fade out to black, and then they fade in, and he's just still in his suit, and it's like, how did Dr. Michaels bring him back to life without taking off his suit
carefully?
And it's just like they just glossed over that
hole, and then you work them down underneath, and you just
it's just like they just glossed over that so that Dr. Michaels never has to know his identity, and Peter is now healed.
Yeah,
like Dr. Michaels should know his identity.
Everything in his head is probably fine. We'll just leave the mask there. Yeah. Doesn't matter if he just got grabbed by the back of the head and then slammed face first into a wall of concrete. He's probably fine.
Concussions aren't
MJ
real.
has one of those Men in Black little things.
Yep.
Yeah, that's one of the gadgets she carries
there
around.
You go.
Did you guys
Perfect.
even play the game?
Plot holes. Yeah, the plot holes are all fixed now. Yeah.
I played it, but then that Men in Black thing must have wiped that from my memory.
Yeah.
Probably.
It's very effective.
So after this scene where Peter is getting better, he kind of gets up. He's still a little bit hurt, actually quite a bit hurt, but he gets up and he's like, I have to go stop him. And he says, MJ's like, you're hurt, you have to rest. And he says to MJ, he's like, I have to stop him. I don't remember the exact phrasing that he uses, but he says like, I don't think I can beat him, or I don't know if I'm strong enough, or something like that, where he expresses doubt in his ability to stop Otto, because Otto is like, each time he's met up with Otto has pretty easily dispatched of him. So he's very rightfully concerned to be like, I don't think I can beat him. Which is when we then get the famous line from MJ where she says, well, maybe Spider-Man needs, I guess not a famous line yet, but she goes, Spider-Man might need help from Peter. Peter helped Otto create these arms. Maybe Peter can help figure out a way to defeat them. And so then Peter gets an idea. He's got to go back to the lab. And so MJ does the famous go get him, Tiger, which I love. I don't know why, as a Spider-Man fan, that just tickles me every time MJ does the go get him, Tiger, but it does every time without fail. Yeah. I just love it.
See, I got some tinglies hearing that line. And like, I think Kirsten Dunst just like delivered it so well in the Sam Raimi films that it's like, it still feels nostalgic, because I don't have any other nostalgia from it, from like the I never read the comics or watched the cartoon. So it's like, the only nostalgia I have is from the original movies, and it still was just done so well that like it feels powerful. It was that good. Anyway, the point I was going to make is like, is this supposed to be a moment of emphasis for Spider-Man's character, where he says maybe you need a help from Peter, in that MJ's foil to Spider-Man, and something I want to get into later, is one of the most important defining characteristics that she brings to the table is that she brings balance to Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And this is her reminding him that he can't be Spider-Man unless he's also Peter Parker. And this is her bringing it full circle. And so this isn't just like a throwaway line. This is her being the critical person that she is to Spider-Man, which is bringing balance.
It's just behind every great man is an even greater woman giving him advice, that kind of a thing, where it's just like Peter is the very front facing, he's the hero, he does the saving, but like, he wouldn't be half as effective without Mary Jane helping him come up with good ideas and encouraging him, and even and in a more real way, like doing investigations for him, helping him uncover information. Like, at least in a lot of the comics, but at least in the Insomniac world, MJ is critical to Peter and Spider-Man's success. Like, she is kind of the unsung hero of their hero duo. So. Mm-hmm. I 100% agree with that, Shan. I think that Spider-Man needs Peter, and he needed to be told that from MJ, to be like, this isn't a Spider-Man thing. This is a Peter thing. Go fix the problem as Peter. That's what you need to do right now. And it's like, he's like, of course, that's what I need to do. You're a genius. Thank you. I don't know how many times like I've had like something in my life where I was just stumped or confused, and then Liz would be like, well, just do this. And I'm like, of course, just do that. That, like, obviously that's what I should do. You're a genius. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
like,
yeah.
One of the defining pillars of any Spider-Man story is the constant struggle of Peter Parker sacrificing his personal life because he has to be Spider-Man. And MJ is the only character that pulls him back in the right amount, but still allows him to be Spider-Man. And so, yeah, anyway, we'll get into that later.
So, yeah, I love this moment. You get the go get him Tiger, and you also get MJ showing exactly why she's so vital to Peter and Spider-Man's success. And so then Spider-Man goes off to the lab to go create things. But then before we see Peter in the lab, you get a little moment with Miles where he's moving some boxes and shuffling some things around, and then all of a sudden a little spider that hitched a ride on MJ's shoulder from, this is a part we totally glossed over, while MJ was in the penthouse, a little spider landed on her shoulder or in her jacket or something.
It was like, because one of the terrariums, like, it got knocked over.
One of the terraria.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
The hell up, Shan.
But those broke, and she got covered in spiders, and she was like, it was sort of a, the hobbits hiding from the Nazgul moment, where like
Nazgul!
the spiders are crawling all over her, and she's trying not to freak out. because Sable's in the room with her, and as soon as Sable leaves, she brushes off and shakes all the spiders off, but she missed one apparently.
She was almost the amazing Spider Lady. If one of those spiders had bit her instead of Miles, she'd be Spider Woman.
Spider? I hardly know her.
So one of these spiders hitches a ride on MJ's jacket or somewhere on her person, ends up at Feast, and so Miles is moving a box and then gets bit on his hand, slaps the spider off and goes ouch, and then the camera pans away, but anyone with a brain sees that happening and they're like, oh, I bet he's gonna get spider powers. And so
I thought, man, he is in yeah, never mind. Cut that.
Better go get that checked out. Call the doctor.
I had a good joke there and I forgot it. Yeah.
Check that it's covered by your healthcare provider.
It's another Office joke, Lundy. You wouldn't get it. It's a secret. You wouldn't understand.
Have you ever seen
I won't understand.
Lundy, have you ever seen what's it called? That really old SNL skit, the chronic, it's something of Narnia. What's it called?
Oh, it's the Lazy Sunday.
Lazy Sunday, the Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah.
The Chronicles of
Narnia.
So
MapQuest is the best. True that, double true.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the best SNL skits of all time,
so
and it was
stupid and so funny.
It was Andy Samberg, The Lonely Island at their peak, right? But anyway, and The Lonely Island, they did some podcasts with Seth Meyers. I listened to a few of them. They're okay. They just kind of recover some of their best skits. Anyway, so The Office does Lazy Scranton when they're introducing some people, and this is season 3, so this is some of the peak Office. And so if you had just made it to season 3, you would know. But they
would have understood the reference.
I mean,
Lundy.
You would have loved this. They do a parody of this, and it's incredible.
I mean, it's not like the only things I've seen are limited to the first 2 seasons. I've seen the dinner party episode.
The best episode, but you kind of have to love the characters to appreciate it.
Yeah, that's one of somebody showed it to me because they were like, "This is the best episode of the show," and I was like, "If this is the best it's got to offer, I'm not interested in the rest."
No, here's the thing.
It's just
that person's a
context.
I just have to.
That person's a dumbass. You can't just jump to that. That episode doesn't exist without the context of everything leading up to it, and so that person did not understand what makes that episode special.
My favorite part of that episode is watching the blooper reels. There's these blooper reels where Michael with his little tiny TV where he like pushes it into the wall like 1 inch, and it's like there's blooper reels where it's just like there's like dozens of them where he's like, and if I need a little bit more room, and he pushes it into the wall like 1 inch, and then John Krasinski just like dies laughing. He just like can't get through that because it's so stupid. He's just like man, boop.
The best episode to watch out of context is the Super Bowl episode, which is the what's it called? It's the the Super Bowl episode, The Fire.
Oh, that's a good one. Where Stanley has a heart attack and
yeah,
that's a good
health stress relief. Stress relief.
Yeah, stress relief. There we go. Yeah, stress relief.
Yeah,
season 5.
And like, I can acknowledge like that it's well written and like it's I could tell that it's quality. It's just not my. It doesn't appeal to me. Like I'm not saying it's a bad show. Up to it. It's not a bad show. It's just not.
You'd have to
my
reverse
flavor.
Engineer it. You would have to go. You said you've done Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh yeah.
So you've done Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You'd have to reverse engineer it. You'd have to do other Michael Schur shows. So you'd have to do Parks and Rec.
The Good Place.
I've seen The Good Place.
Yeah. And then you'd kind of like you'd have to do other SNL type comedies and then get to The Office.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of them that I like. For whatever reason, mockumentaries are really hard for me to find funny.
We will never give up on you, Lundy.
Even Community.
One day you'll love The
Community's
Office.
not a mockumentary. Well, it's got mockumentary episodes.
Oh, sorry. I was in a different train of thought. Not mockumentary. They do a mockumentary episode, but. Yeah. Do you struggle with Community?
Community is one of my all-time favorite shows.
Okay.
I adore
What about What We Do in the Shadows? Can you do that?
I loved the movie. I loved the movie, and the first few episodes I struggled with.
That's a shame. That show is so funny.
All right. Let's continue.
Anyways, Spider-Man stuff, you guys.
Everybody eviscerate Lundy in the comments.
Yeah, this is the issue that we run into whenever we record with Lundy. Is it invariably turns back to The Office, and then we feel like we have to try to convert him multiple times every episode. And I don't think it's going to happen, but we're honor bound to defend The Office.
I mean, I'm not attacking it. I'm just saying it's not.
Yes, you are, Lundy.
You're
By
when
not-
you attack The
by
Office,
not
you
loving
attack
it.
me.
I can recognize that like there's good quality comedy in it. It's just not my brand.
You
And
know
yet
what?
you like
And
all other brands that are around The Office. You
Well,
just
you know
don't like
what?
The Office itself.
I respect that, Lundy. People like what they like, and that's okay. It bums me out
Lundy-
because I think it's great, but you know what? That's okay. It's all good.
We all can't like Meat Lovers Pizza. Lundy's stuck on Hawaiian, and is just
I
that's
love
what he's going to
Hawaiian
go
pizza.
with.
Hawaiian pizza is
With
amazing.
olives on it for some reason.
Yeah. What's
Olives
up with
on
that?
Hawaiian pizza?
Okay, that happened. My in-laws wanted to put mushrooms on a Hawaiian pizza. And I'm
Did
like,
you divorce
no.
yourself from that side of the family? Hawaiian pizza is
Congratulations, you
delicious.
ruined
I
pizza.
am in that camp where I think like Hawaiian pizza might be my favorite kind of pizza.
Ooh,
Like I love Hawaiian
interesting.
pizza. I think it's
I'm-
maybe not my favorite, but I love Hawaiian pizza. It's like if I get a choice, that's usually what I'm going to choose.
I am a firm believer in pineapple on pizza. Not
I
just
love
Hawaiian.
sweet and
it's just-
salty.
yeah,
it's like
it's
it's just good.
Here's the thing. I think there's just a different way to make pizza that would make it better. Like, I don't think you just throw pineapple in the oven. I think you grill pineapple and then put it on the pizza.
Well, of
I don't
course,
think
that
you
would
just-
make it even better. Yeah.
I don't think you just throw vegetables on a pizza and throw it in the oven. I
What
think
if those
you
vegetables
grill
are tomatoes?
vegetables. I think you grill vegetables and then you put it on a pizza. That makes it
Like-
fantastic.
What about like tomatoes and some green peppers on a pizza? Delicious.
How about sun-dried tomatoes and then
Yeah,
put
well,
it on a pizza?
Or just like
Sun-dried
slices,
tomatoes
are
like
great
slices of
on
whole
pizza.
tomatoes on a pizza. Delicious. Or
What
sun-dried
if you took
tomatoes,
these
also
tomatoes
delicious.
and mashed them up to a really fine paste and stuck that underneath the cheese? on
Ooh,
the
you could put it
pizza?
under the cheese. That's a great idea, Tucker.
It's just like
You should write that down.
I'm just sick of everybody taking these like plain store-bought vegetables and just cutting them up dry and throwing it on pizza and thinking that that's a good pizza. That's not a good pizza.
Yeah.
That doesn't unlock the flavor of the vegetables. That just like makes a shitty pizza. All right.
The hell
Even
were we
if you're getting
talking
shitty
about?
vegetables. Yeah.
You just have to grill them to unlock the flavor.
I feel like The Office and pizza. That's the rest. We're done, right? We can end the episode. I forgot what we were talking about. Oh yes, that's right, Spider-Man. So Miles gets bit by a spider. Peter is off to the lab to go and figure out a way to stop Doc Ock. And so he goes to the lab. He does some science, and he makes himself a very, very cool new suit. With
It's a
big
very
glowing-
cool suit.
It's a very cool suit. It's got a nice
To
big
go on a
yellow spider
Spider-Man.
on it. To go on a Spider-Man. I really like this suit. I like that it borrows design elements from Doc Ock's arms. It has the same kind of color and like the way that the arms are like segmented and sliced up. It looks very similar to Ock's tentacles. So like they're sharing technology because it's like if he needs to stop Dr. Octopus with his arms, he needs the suit that can kind of counter that in a way, or at least provide defense from those arms when they're really thrashing him around. So I think it's a very cool, well-designed suit. I like all the suits Insomniac makes up until the second Spider-Man game when they stumble
the
a little
Miles
bit.
Morales
For another day. we're not alone in that opinion, but all of the suits that Insomniac comes up with in this first game are all excellent, So then Peter is off for the final confrontation, the big bad. It's finally time to go ham and fisticuffs with Otto. I love this fight. I
thought you were going to say you're going to go fist Otto.
Oh,
And I was
it's
fine
always
with
something
it.
sexual with you, Shan. Like,
Well,
it's taking perfectly innocent sayings like "I'm gonna go fist somebody," and then you got to make it weird and sexual.
you speak in sexual euphemisms, so it's easy to assume that's where you were going with it.
Well,
Sex fist. 1, 2,
One,
3,
one,
4,
three, four.
5.
Sex fist.
Sex fist.
it's a new girl quote. Have you watched? We don't. No. We're not even gonna ask Lundy. We're not gonna get into another thing about TV. I'm just gonna assume that Lundy loves all TV, and we're gonna keep moving on.
I have seen New Girl.
Oh, good.
And loved it, obviously.
Yes, correct.
New Girl is objectively hilarious. Okay, so off to the final battle with Otto. I love this. So you see Otto Octavius. He's on top of the Oscorp Tower. He's got Norman like all curled up in his tentacle, and he's like just going. He's like he has everything that he's wanted, everything that he's working for. It's right here in front of him. He's got a phone. He's videoing, like video recording Norman, and he says, tell everyone the truth, tell everyone who you really are. He's trying to get him to like confess on video so that he can finally have that like, yes, I got him. Everyone knows you for what you truly are. Confess to the horrible experiments that you've done.
By the way, a confession under duress isn't admissible in court. So.
I mean, but Otto's crazy, so
whatever.
Excuse me.
Also not a lawyer
at this point.
Yeah,
So
he's
he doesn't
also
know that.
It's gotcha journalism at its best.
Yeah, exactly.
Otto Octavius, the gotcha.
How
journalist.
so? Because it says right there, gotcha. It's another Parks reference.
So I love this part.
No, in what way? It says right there, gotcha.
Journalism. So I like this reaction from Norman because it really like we see Norman as kind of this like skeezy, like do whatever he needs to get ahead, like kind of a slimy character. And a lot of slimy characters in this situation would have done anything to save their own lives. Like Otto's like, confess who you are. It's like, fine, I'm sorry, I confess. I did all these horrible things, blah, 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 blah. But Norman, in a surprising turn of events, does something that I really was not expecting from Norman. He says, confess everything, confess all this stuff. And then he's like, you want the truth? Fine. And instead of like just holding his ground and saying like, no, I'm not going to confess to anything, he like gets in Otto's face and insults him. He's like, you're a stupid scientist. You're bad at things. Like, I don't remember exactly what he says, but he does say something to the effect of like, it's a bold
Let's see if it pays off, Cotton.
Well,
It pays off, Cotton.
and he throws a line into Otto's face that it's just like, cool, man. He's like, this and this and that, and you were only ever worth a damn when you worked for me. And it's just like, that's the exact wrong thing to say to Otto in this moment. And so Otto, like, the motion capture, the actor does such a good job here because you can see this like elation on his face. He's got what he wants. He's about to like have everything he's been working towards. And then Norman just spits in his face and insults his integrity as a scientist and his mission and everything he believes in. And you just watch this like thing wash over his face where he's just like, I'm not going to get what I want out of this. No matter what I do, Norman's not. And so it's this beautiful little bit of acting. And I absolutely love that you can just see it like drain, like those feelings just drain out of his face.
So I know, Eric, you said like, that's not what you say, but I think that's the relationship that Norman has with Otto is that's the exact thing to say because he knows exactly how to hurt Otto in that moment. He has no physical leverage. He's between a rock and a hard place. And he knows if he goes after this thing with Otto, that's what's gonna actually affect him.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I mean. Yeah, it's unexpected in the moment because I was fully thinking, okay, he's gonna try to wiggle his way out of it. He's gonna be sleazy. He's gonna just do this, but then he just goes on the offensive. And go ahead, Shan.
No, counter argument is, would this be out of character in that wouldn't he need to protect himself because he's still trying to save Harry? And if he does this, he's automatically dead and he can't save Harry. And he's the only one who can.
I think at this point he probably assumes he's already dead. I think he realizes, look, I've screwed over Otto enough times that he's just gonna like there's no win here.
Why give him the confession if I die anyway?
Yeah, like, he just wants me to confess and then he'll kill me. Like, I think Norman's already accepting his own death. And so it's kind of his final middle finger where he's just like, I'm not giving you the satisfaction. I'm dead anyway, but you're not getting, like, we both lose. If I go down, I'm taking you down with me.
Wouldn't Otto want to see, wouldn't he want Norman to see the destruction of his empire? I think that would be a greater satisfaction with Norman and Rikers.
I think that maybe his original plan was to keep Norman alive, at least to a degree where he could watch him, like where Norman could watch Otto dismantle everything that he's built, and by discrediting him or whatever. But then maybe in this moment, Norman pushed his buttons too hard and enraged him so much that he's just like, fine, you're just going to die. Like, and I don't know exactly what's going on. Like I think to Lundy's point, it's likely that Otto was going to kill him here anyways. He gets his confession and then just kills him. And, so I think it's just a really, you get to see into both of these characters a little bit more. You get to see a more ballsy side of Norman where you're like, oh, maybe this is like, you can kind of see like how a lot of people kind of got behind him and would elect him as mayor, and he's a CEO of a big company. Like, you can see why maybe he's got that charisma and that willingness to stick up for things and defend himself to a degree, even though he's also a very sleazy businessman. So it's this, you get this little glimpse of Norman that we haven't got a lot of before, where he's very ballsy in this literal life or death situation. And then to just watch Otto crumble because he realizes he's not getting exactly what he wanted. And then he's like, well, fine, maybe killing you is enough. And he just lets go and drops him off the building. So, but then Spider-Man, of course, comes swinging by and just like
does
kind of
whatever
grabs
Spider
him
can.
and then just like sort of lackadaisically tosses him on the building, like, I'll deal with you later. Like, or I guess he doesn't really need to deal with him. He just kind of tosses him up there like, you're saved. It's good. Now I'm going to go solve the problem. I'm going to go fight Otto. And then you have an awesome rooftop battle. I think that the setting for this final confrontation was so perfect. It's this like, it's just, you're on top of this very tall building. You can see most of New York like all around you in different directions. It also limits your ability to like really swing off of other things. There's this tower kind of in the middle that you can swing off of. So it's like you can swing, but not quite as much as you normally would have. But because the tower is in the center, whenever you do swing, it centers your movement and gravity towards the boss arena. So that's smart design there. It's just a fun, visually interesting boss battle with a lot of excellent banter as well. The dialogue between Peter and Otto in this fight is spectacular.
Yeah, I haven't looked it up, but like Insomniac clearly, they probably spent 6+ years developing New York City or Manhattan, and this is their moment to just like, I'm sure artistically they're like, I want to show off in our climactic battle like what we accomplished here, and what better way than to block out Manhattan and show off everything that we did. And it's beautifully rendered, it's beautifully captured, and I don't know, it just like it did it all. I don't know, I can't really articulate it. I just feel like it encapsulated everything that the developers and the studio accomplished with this scene.
It feels like a very earned climax to the game, where you spend all this time swinging around the city, and then the final battle, you're on a plinth like above overlooking the whole city, so you can see like, these are the stakes, this is the city, this is what you're fighting for. But also the city, it's my city.
The city.
But also, you at the beginning of the fight, you see like Otto has the cure, which, we forgot to mention, Aunt May needs the cure. She's sick and dying back at Feast. I forgot to mention that earlier. When you're there at Feast, you see that she's like in really, really bad shape just before Peter goes off to get the cure. So he's got like an external motivation outside of like getting a cure and saving the city. It's like, my mom is dying. I need that medicine to save her. And it's made pretty clear that like she doesn't have a lot of time. And so I love jokey, silly Spider-Man when he's calling his enemies Herman and Willie and just being silly with them. But there's also something really cool about when someone that Peter loves is in immediate danger, and then this switch flips in his head and he's serious Spider-Man, where it's like, I have to get things done now. And you see a few moments like that in the comics, and it's like very, very cool. Like this moment right here is mirroring one of his most famous moments in the comics, where he needs to get a cure. Aunt May is sick, and he needs to get a cure from Doc Ock, and he's buried under tons and tons and tons of rubble. And the water, there's a leak in the ceiling, the water is dripping down, and he's about to drown. And he's like, I have to get out from under this rubble, which is much heavier than he should be able to pick up. And it's this really excellent illustrated comic book panel where he's like lifting up this huge pile of things. There's water dripping down him. And it's this incredible feat. It's a very famous like Spider-Man moment in comics. And so it's fun to see this final battle reflective of that. He's not lifting up a heavy thing, but it's like there's this really incredibly tough villain in between him and a cure that he needs for Aunt May. And so it's like, there's no jokes, there's no being silly, there's no quips. It's business time. Like he's here to just fix the problem, get it done, and save the people he loves. And I love when Spider-Man does that.
And like this is why I think some of us recognize, if at least subconsciously, that like comics have made the best dramatic actors in historically in our favorite dramas like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So Bob Odenkirk and what's basically his name?
Bryan Cranston.
It's just like every time these incredibly funny actors that you've had like a decade or two of their comedic chops just thrown in your face in everything they've done, and then they take their first dramatic role and it's all serious and they don't even throw out one funny line. It's like the director is taking advantage of the psychology of what you expect from the actor, and so it's just sheer contrast, and so like the gravitas of the role is just so much more profound. And so that's kind of what's going on here with Spider-Man. It's like you get quips for 20 hours straight and every single thing is a joke, every single scenario. And so when he's serious, it is hella serious and you are in the moment.
Yeah, and instead of quips, you get a lot of really great back and forth lines between like Otto and Peter. Like Otto is yelling at him, it's like, how much is Norman paying you to defend him? And Peter's like, I'm not, like, are you crazy? I'm here to stop you. Look at what you're doing, kind of a thing. So you fight on top of this building for a minute, and then you rip off one of Otto's arms. Like in a serious moment, he's got you pinned, and to get out of it, you like grab him and then you kick one of his arms off. Not his actual arms, one of his robot arms. Because Otto's normal arms are weak and useless.
Now he's just a septopus.
Now he's a septopus. So you finish your battle with Dr. Septopus. Yeah.
Dr. Septopus.
Well, that sounds way less menacing. It is I, Dr. Septopus.
Or what? Dr. Septo.
Oh man. So then in that process, Otto grabs Peter's web shooters and breaks them. So you don't have your webs anymore. And then the boss battle transitions from the top of the building to being like on like the wall of the building. You're kind of like fighting on the side of the wall of this huge building, and it's just an extra epic battle. And it's basically a glorified quick time event. This whole thing, it's like punch, 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 dodge when you can, punch, 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 dodge when you can, web here. It's like it's fairly scripted, but because the setting is so epic. And the dialogue in this part in particular is, I wrote a lot of it down because I was just like, I freaking love this. Like,
it's all about the dialogue, but it's very well blocked and framed because the camera is locked in position.
Yeah.
And so it's really just about capturing the interaction between these characters. And so like really like the fight, if you miss some punches and stuff, it really just kind of goes back into rotation. It's very routine because they want you focusing on the interaction between characters, and it is spectacular, climactic character dialogue. It is some of the best writing. It's probably the best writing in the whole game.
Yeah, I love the finale here because you get the more kind of fighty stuff with Martin Lee, and then your Doc Ock battle is dialogue heavy and more focused on that, and you get best of both worlds in the finale of this game, which I love so much.
One of the things that added gravity to this particular part of the fight to me is that, canonically, and this is the case through basically any medium for Spider-Man, is that he pulls his punches. He knows how much stronger he is than the opponents that he's fighting. And these are hits that are going directly to Doc Ock's face. Like, these aren't his arms that are super powered. This is a frail old man who is losing his physical capacity to do things. And Peter knows that. And you can hear it in his voice just how supercharged with emotion he is. And he's still pulling his punches, because it takes a good number of punches to subdue Otto in this time. And so Peter, he is overcome with emotion. Like, he just found out that Otto knew,
Not
like,
yet. Oh yeah, no,
he tears off part of
he rips
it.
off his mask. You're right.
Yeah.
You knew, yeah.
And
because
I glossed over that part before you go to the side of the building. Yeah, you get Lundy, go ahead.
Yeah.
But you get that awesome scene where
he's, and he goes down there, and that's when Peter starts yelling, you were everything to me. You were everything I want. Like, just giving him some of these lines of dialogue, and like
every line that is like emphatically important to Peter, he's emphasizing with like a punch to Otto's jaw. And like, you've never seen at any point in this game punches that are hitting so hard with so much momentum. Like, that's the power of like locking the camera the way they did, is you're able to see the weightiness of these punches, as Lundy, you were alluding to.
Yeah. And again, to Lundy's point, I wrote down my favorite little snippet of dialogue from this, and I want to read it because I think it's just so awesome, where they're both just in this very frantic, frenzied kind of last stand mind state. And Otto yells out in desperation. He says, "You should have been on my side." Just like, "I can't believe that you're fighting against me." And then Peter yells out, "I was. You were my hero. You meant so much to me. I hate that you're making me do this. You were going to change the world." And it's just like, this is something that Peter believed in outside of Spider-Man. He was going to help Otto do good. Otto was a truly gifted scientist who wanted to do things to bless humanity and to create good in the world. And Peter believed in that. And Otto has betrayed that belief. And not only by going against Otto's own moral compass, but by physically attacking him and his family and the people that he loves. And so Yuri Lowenthal's performance here, where he's just screaming these lines in desperate agony at Otto, where he's just, "You were my hero. You meant so much to me. I hate that you're making me do this. You were going to change the world." And he's just screaming and like on the verge of tears, probably, just like, and it's just this, it's so good. It's just so amazing. I think Yuri Lowenthal is the best Spider-Man. He's fantastic. I love the emotion he puts into these lines.
Well, and like, think about the character psychology of the word choice that they're doing with this dialogue. And think about the profoundness of his character motivation, because something that you might not have considered, or at least have been able to articulate, is one thing that's different between him as a superhero and other superheroes is that he thinks of his powers as a burden, and others think of it as a privilege or something that they actually want. Spider-Man doesn't really want his powers, but because he has them, he sees it as an onerous and burdensome responsibility that he has to live up to every single day, to take full advantage of, to help every single person around him. And he can't stop. And it is coming at a great sacrifice to his personal Peter Parker life. And the significance of Dr. Octavius to him was he was offering Peter Parker an alternative life where he was going to have enough of a profound impact on the world that he could choose to live a life without Spider-Man, without the burden of his powers, because he could exchange Spider-Man for helping out a greater number of people than he could as Spider-Man. And so the psychology of the word choice that he's making right here is that he actually hates Otto because he now has to go back to being Spider-Man. He has to destroy Otto, and he hates that he can't save the world through Dr. Octavius and his industry of helping people through his intellect and through his through his science that they were working on together. Like that, this isn't an insignificant thing that he's saying. He was going to choose to not be Spider-Man, and now he has to, which he doesn't want.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that's why the responsibility factor is so important to Peter, is because his powers are kind of a burden. They're a responsibility that he has to bear, and that it's almost never easy for Peter to do that. There's one run in the comics where it involves some weird wibbly wobbly time travel stuff, because comics, but like Peter has the opportunity, like he's going through time and he's fighting some of his most significant villains again, and then he gets taken back in time to a moment and he sees like himself about to get bit by the spider, and he's like, I could whip the spider, I could hit it with a web, the spider would never bite me and I'd never get the powers. And he has this moment of like struggle, and he like can't make himself stop the spider from biting him, but then he's just in this corner, just like pained screams to himself, where he's just like, I can't do it, but I want to. I don't want to be Spider-Man. I want to not have this burden. I want a normal life, but he just can't do it because he has that responsibility not to. And so it's just this, I think you're right, it's a very important part of Spider-Man as a character, where oftentimes his powers and his feel like a burden, and it's not an easy burden to bear that he would often rather not bear.
Yeah, he even specifically says this when he's at the restaurant with MJ, where he's talking about the future he sees with Otto, and that he thinks that he could have that future without Spider-Man. And MJ's like, I've never heard you talk like this. And he's like, a lot can change. And MJ like accepts that this could be promising, because she was seeing him become too much Spider-Man and not enough Peter. And she accepts that the Spider-Man half, she just wants some Peter Parker too. She just needs the balance. She's okay with that. But he is so neurotically wired to sacrifice Peter for Spider-Man. And he because of that burden of responsibility. And Otto's
terrible work-life balance.
Yeah. And so now without Otto, he needs MJ to find that balance. Because he now has to be Spider-Man too.
Yep. So really excellent dialogue back and forth, really good character moments between Peter and Otto. And then it kind of comes to a head where they're fighting and Otto's kind of got him pinned. And he stabs Peter a little bit through the shoulder, and it again, Yuri Lowenthal, excellent pained screams with really driven by emotion. And he's got Peter stabbed a little bit through the shoulder here. And then Otto gives him a little speech about, what real heroes are, and, that they have to be able to make the tough decisions. And then Peter says, I couldn't agree more. And then he pulls the tentacle in further so that it stabs all the way through him and quite a bit into the building behind him to pull Otto close enough to get the cure and kind of punch his lights out. And then he has this that's how he finally gets the upper hand on Otto, and by, again, very literally self-sacrificing. He sacrifices his own physical pain, like stabbing all the way through his shoulder, so that to get Otto within range to be able to finally take him down. And he gets him close and then pulls the chip off the back of his neck and then kind of kicks him into a building. And then you see this frail, broken Otto with his limp robot arms that can't move at all behind him. And Otto's just kind of laying there, like just devastated, because this thing that gave him meaning and gave him power is dead. It's gone. And then they go, and then Peter swings down, and they have another really awesome conversation. Just this that I wrote down because I want to pick it apart piece by piece, because I think there's so much good stuff in there. They have this really heartfelt, awesome conversation where Otto knows he's defeated, and so he's trying to kind of reason with Peter and get something from Peter. And so I don't know. So I guess I'll go through this read a little bit of the conversation, then we can pause and talk about it as we go. But so Otto starts by saying, Peter, I saw you as a son. I should have known you would turn on me, just like all the others. Why is Otto does he really believe that the world is against him? That Peter is against him?
He's got a victim mindset. And I think he's got an external locus of control where he can't blame himself for his own shortcomings. So an external locus of control would be the kind of person that thinks that everything is luck-based or other people are against them, and they can never accept that there are consequences to their own actions that are causing their own distress. And so that's just my opinion. It's that's what creates a victim mindset, where it's this happened because somebody attacked me, or like he can't just acknowledge
it's all
that
Norman's fault. Now it's all Peter's
Norman's fault.
Yeah.
He can't, like, maybe a lot of what he's blaming Norman for was actually his own fault, because he actually wasn't strong enough to take control of his business, and Norman was the stronger person. There is some truth to, like, Norman is a strong person, and that's why he created an enterprise, and he probably hates that he was the weaker person, but he wants to blame somebody else.
Yeah. So I think Otto really kind of a defensive, pushes all of his the blame outwards. And so he's got that line, Peter, I saw you as a son. I should have known you would turn on me just like all the others. And then Peter is completely flabbergasted. And he says, turn? I worshipped you. Your mind, your conscience, wanting to help others, the way that you never gave up. Like, he's just so, I worshipped you. I thought everything of you. And then Otto turns it around and says, that's because men like us have a duty. So he's trying to put them on the same, like, it's you and me against everyone else. Men like us. He says, men like us have a duty, a responsibility, which is like Spider-Man's trigger word. We have a responsibility. He's like, men like us have a duty, a responsibility to use our talents in the service of others. And then you see Peter kind of like, he's like, oh, I agree with that. He's kind of like on board with, like, maybe I can help Otto still. And then Otto says this next thing, and then you can see Peter's facial expression change. He says, to use our talents in the service of others, and then even if they don't appreciate it, we do what's best for those beneath us, whether they understand it or not. And that's when Peter, like, you can like see the pain in his face. He's listening to Otto. He's like, yes, maybe you're right. We have a responsibility to do this. And then he starts talking about these people, how they're beneath them, and it doesn't matter if they understand it. We have to do it for them anyways. And that's where Otto loses Peter. And Peter just kind of like, that's when I think Peter realizes, like, Otto is past saving. Yeah. I can't, he's gone. Yeah.
I mean, this is a bit of a tangent, but this is kind of alluding to an ideology of social hierarchy, and some people just genuinely believe that we need to establish a world where the smartest and most able are allowed to rise up and rule over the weakest of us, and we need to make space for that, and we need to choose to be subservient to that type of person. And right now there is a growing movement to make space for techno oligarchs and create space for techno feudalism. And so right now Silicon Valley is kind of creating this movement where they want to make space, because they believe that their wealth is equal to their intelligence, and that they are the smart ones that are to inherit the power that will rule over our country and the power in our world. And so it's just like, so when he alludes to, like, we need to rule over people even if they don't understand it, and it's just like, it alludes to this gross undergirding of, like, I understand better what people understand, and we should do it without asking permission instead of people ruling themselves. It's just like a gross, like, twist of how we understand we should be governed. And so it's just like, it's an idea. He is an ideologically driven human being. So I love that Otto is this well written as a character. He's not just superficially written. He's ideological, and they understand how to write him.
And I think that, one of the things that is interesting why he loses Peter there, is because, he's saying we need to help people because they're not capable, whether they want it or not. And from Otto's perspective, he might look at this and say, Spider-Man goes around the city. He doesn't wait for people to call him and ask for help. He goes and he sees somebody that's in need of help and he helps them. And so Otto might be saying, well, he's not getting their permission first. You know, that they're not asking for his help here. You know, it's kind of like the at the beginning of The Incredibles when he saves the guy that's jumping off the building and the guy gets mad. You know, Otto might view it kind of from that lens, but where the reason that, you know, he loses Peter there is Peter recognizes I can do things that other people can't, but that doesn't make him better than them. You know, he sees the worth of every person as equal, and that includes himself. He has different abilities than they do, but his worth is the same. And that's why he goes out and you know, saves these people, is because, you know, to him it's they matter as much as I do. And Otto doesn't see it that way, and he doesn't realize that Peter doesn't see it that way.
Yeah, if you believe in social hierarchy, you're okay with subjugating those that are less than because you understand the importance of those that are better than. And so there's an in-group and an out-group, and Peter is a part of, he is the everyman hero, and he believes in that equality of every person and values every human life equally. And so they are ideologically on completely different planes, and they will never see eye to eye because of that.
Sorry, I was trying to look up the rest of the dialogue, but because I wanted to pick it apart a little more than what I wrote down, but I didn't. So, but I've got broad strokes. So, after this moment where they have that really great back and forth, Peter realizes that Otto is gone, and Otto starts to realize that, you know, maybe Peter's not going to help him, and so he kind of starts to twist again, rather from entreating Peter to sort of low-key threatening him. He says, you know, it was the chip that made my brain do those crazy things. You know, help me perfect it. Help me make it better. You know, we can work together again. And of course, you know, if you help me, you know that your secret will always be safe with me. And so it's this it's this thing where he's appealing to Peter to be like, please, I'm a poor, sick little man. I need you to. It wasn't me. Help me, please. Help me be better.
He's doing
and if you do, I won't tell people you're Spider-Man. Like,
he's doing the Norman Osborn from the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie.
Please.
Please.
Yeah.
I've seen the light.
So it's his kind of his last ditch effort to be like, because he knows that Peter loves him and has viewed him as a father, and he's like, maybe if I this is my last, I got to try to get him on my side kind of a thing. And then Peter gives him the kind of like, we all do the best with what we can. You do what you got to do kind of a thing. And then
so
Peter
he's willing to be outed as Peter Parker.
I guess so.
He has a moral absolutism that he has to do what's right at his own expense.
Yep. So Peter takes the cure, he starts to walk away. And then Otto, this part's kind of like heartbreaking because we really see a human side of Otto here, where he's just like, please, like, come back. He's just like wailing and almost crying.
He's going through the 5 steps of...
They'll take me to jail. They'll take my arms away. He's so like, they'll take my arms away. The only thing that matters to him, because he's like, I'll be trapped in this weak, useless body. Please, Peter, no, please. And he's just like, just devastated and wailing like a child almost.
He's
it's
bargaining.
Just like, please don't let this happen kind of a thing. So again, and I should have looked up the name of the voice actor, but I absolutely adore the person who plays Doc Ock in this game. I think he's fantastic. He rides the line between sinister villain and like pleading victim so well, and he's spectacular. So Otto is beat. You've got the cure. You swing back very quickly. You beat him off. Sure. Why not?
Why do you always make it sexual, Eric?
It's always me. I'm so sorry to always make it so sexual. So you've got the cure. You go back to Feast and you see Aunt May is in very, very bad shape. This is the part of the game where I realized that Insomniac perfectly understands Spider-Man as a character. And this is in its purest form, I feel like, a Spider-Man choice. So he gets there and he's like, Doc, I've got the medicine, because Dr. Michaels is there, like ready to whip up an anti-serum or a serum, anti-venom? I don't know, a cure for the for the devil's breath thing that's been infecting everybody. And so he's got this one sample, and the doctor's like, okay, well, yeah, I can use this to synthesize more samples, but we need the whole sample. And then Peter slowly starts to realize, he says, well, what if we use this sample to cure one person? And then Dr. Michael said, well, we wouldn't have enough to cure everybody then to make the thing. And so
anti-serum.
The anti-serum to make the thing. To make the thing anti-serum. And so Peter is now realizing that he has to choose between saving his aunt and saving everyone else who is sick. And everyone else who might get sick from this. He's got a chance to stop this before it spreads, to give everyone, the cure that they need, or to save Aunt May. Basically his mom. Not basically, his mom. The woman who raised him. And so he goes over to talk to Aunt May, and he has this really wonderful moment with May, where he's just kneeling at her bedside, and he is looking her in the face, and she's so sick and just clearly could go at any moment. And he says, don't worry, ma'am. Everything's going to be all right. And she responds, take off your mask. I want to see my nephew. And I just I just felt this moment so much, that she's on her last leg, and she says, just take off your mask. I want to see my nephew. That she knew. And Peter says the same thing. He says, you knew? And she says, yeah. And he says I didn't want you to worry, kind of a thing. And then Peter breaks down, and he starts to cry, and he says, I don't know what to do. Sorry. He's just looking at his mom who's dying. He says, I don't know what to do. And she just looks back at him and says, yes, you do. Sorry. This is hitting me a lot harder than I thought it would. And she says, yes, you do. And so then Peter takes the vial, and he goes to plug it into the IV sac for Aunt May. And he sits there, and he pauses, and he's got it in his hand, and he just can't do it. And then he goes back to May's side, and she passes right there with him. And then Peter gives the cure to Dr. Michael so they can synthesize a cure for everybody. And this is the most Spider-Man moment. May is his last piece of family. Both of his parents died when he was a baby. He doesn't have any siblings. Uncle Bay died because of a negative choice that he made. So he feels kind of responsible for Uncle Ben's death. Aunt May is his mom, the last person in the world. His whole family, his everything orbits around her. And he has a choice to save her, but he can't, because he's honor bound to the city. And I think it's such a good Spider-Man moment to say, okay, you have to sacrifice what you want to help everyone else. That is a Spider-Man moment. That's a Spider-Man choice. That's what makes Spider-Man so unique and so relatable. Is we've talked about it kind of ad nauseum, is him constantly sacrificing his personal life, his own feelings, his own desires to be Spider-Man, to help as many people as he can. And I think one of the things in this moment that makes it so nice and so okay is that he goes to Aunt May and he says, I don't know what to do. And she says, yes, you do. She's like, she gives him permission basically to be like, don't save me. This is bigger than me. Save everyone else.
She doesn't even have to give him permission. She knows him.
Yeah.
And she knows that he has these values, that because she's seen him grow over these 8 or so years ever since Ben has died into a man who she has figured out has been protecting the cities. You figure maybe 5 or so years she has seen him disappear whenever the news has been on and gone out, and then she's seen the follow-up news of how he's protected the city and how he's been uncompromising and relentless, and at the great expense of losing his apartment and everything. And that's why she had to follow up and give him money to protect his apartment. She's always known that it was because he was doing something else. It wasn't because he was being lazy. It was because he was sacrificing to help other people. And so it was never a problem to her to return the favor. And so, yeah, she wasn't giving permission. She knew that he was going to do it because he has uncompromising morals, and that he is a good person.
And I think that, like, what adds power to her, saying that as well is, like, even without that, he would have made the right choice, but he genuinely, I think, feels conflicted. Like, he's actually truly considering saving May in this moment. And May knows that, she's the one that is, his moral compass is identical to hers. She's the one that taught him morals, and things like that. And so when he's like, I don't know what to do, like, he does, but he's doubting, he's questioning, and she's like, you know what the right thing is. She's telling him, like, kind of, she's still providing that tether in her last moments. And, even then, like, I think he's still a little conflicted as you see he goes to try to maybe put that, give her the serum, and he just can't bring himself to do it because he knows better, and he knows better because May is the one that taught him that. And, so it really is just a beautiful moment. I love everything about this interaction. It's, it's like Eric said, it's the perfect Spider-Man moment. So yeah, I think you guys have nailed that with what
nailed it out of the park.
Nailed it out of the park.
Nailed it out of the park.
Yeah, it's
the park.
Yeah,
it's the trolley problem, as is pretty obvious.
Yeah, how many games can we play where that has some version of the trolley problem at the end of it?
All video games have the trolley problem.
Every
and if they don't,
games.
they should. Yeah.
It's the most clear-cut ethical, dilemma to pose. So I wanted to ask, why do you think Aunt May allowed Peter to have this secret for so many years? Well, yeah.
I think it's because it was his secret. I mean, Aunt May loves Peter and respects him and is like, I'm sure that she probably kind of figured out why he was keeping a secret. He's like, he probably is trying to keep me safe. He doesn't want me to worry. And I'm going to let him think that. I don't want him to think that I'm worrying. And so he's like, I'm going to let him think that he's got this secret. And she respects him enough to be like, when he wants to tell me or when he feels like it's time to tell me, he'll tell me, which is in my experience, a very motherly thing to do.
I guess it really is. Yeah. It does redound to that one line is, I didn't want you to worry.
Yeah.
And it was really just, he needed to protect her. It was for the safety of her feelings because he's her boy.
Yeah. So that's what I think about that.
But like, if she came out and said, like, I know it's you and I'll worry, but I'll be fine. She could have done that at some point. So she still chose to allow him to keep this secret. And I wondered if there was, like, maybe we could derive some other character choice from that I thought was interesting. But I don't know. We could just leave it at that.
I was gonna say, I really just think it's that she wanted him to be the one that made that choice. It's sort of like, I don't have any personal experience with this, but when people have a big piece of news or like a thing that they want to reveal, you could probably liken it to coming out of the closet or something, where it's just like, you don't want to take that away from a person. You let them do that how they want to do it. And this is a big part of Peter's
never
life.
Out somebody's alter ego.
Exactly. So Peter, if he doesn't want to, like, say Aunt May, tell Aunt May, that's his thing to tell. She respects him enough to be like, when/if that's something he wants to do, he can do it.
He's earned this. Yeah. I guess it's really just that he's an adult. He's done everything for everybody. If he chooses not to tell me, then he will tell me. Then he's earned that choice. Okay, that's fair.
Just another reason why I love this Aunt May is probably my favorite Aunt May. I love Aunt May in this game. I think she's spectacular. Just a lovely, lovely lady, which makes it heartbreaking to see her pass like this. But in the perfect Spider-Man moments. So there's that. And then we do a forward time jump to May's funeral. She's resting next to Ben, which is, obviously very nice, warm fuzzies. Miles and MJ are there. And then you see Otto is locked up. So it's kind of wrapping everything up in a nice, tidy little bow. And then it jumps to 3 months later. You see Peter and MJ, they're sitting at that the booth at Mix where they like to eat their Italian French fries. And MJ's talking about a promotion she's got, an associate editor. Peter's still looking for a job. And then MJ offers Peter to stay with her. Like, while you're looking, if you need a place to stay, you can stay with me. And Peter says, oh, I mean, yeah, that would be great if you want. And then MJ says, I never stopped wanting to. And then Peter says, me either. And then they smooch. Tucker is making crude hand gestures on the other that you can't see because he's not the person talking right now.
And I'm sure Stanley is also in the background of the mix, also making those.
He's just over there doing the one like this.
That's it. He's in the booth next to it going, yeah.
Which
guys,
complete
got to make it gross. I mean, but
it's not a gross
we're just trying to live up to your sexual level.
Yeah, the bar that I set.
Yeah.
Just so gross. It's hard to keep up with Eric's
his sexuality,
sexual banter,
sexual entendres.
In our text chain. Sometimes we just have to mute it for a couple days.
Yeah. I'm just a dirty, nasty boy. I don't know what to say. You pegged me. That's you got me on that one. I did that one on purpose. That one was just for Tucker. I could see that. Yeah. Anyways, so I think this is a really nice way to end the game. They smooch. It's a very nice moment, and then they play these credits that are beautiful animation. I think really fun. And then in typical Marvel fashion, they have a mid-credit scene and an end-credit scene. And then the mid-credit scene is Miles comes and he has something important to tell Peter. Whatever could it be? And I love this cutscene. I feel like he's gay. Miles says, "Hi, Peter, I'm gay."
He's coming out of the closet.
Yeah, it's coming out of the spine. All of you gay people out there, tell us if this is insensitive. Can we call the telling someone you're Spider-Man, is that coming out of the spider closet? Is that an okay thing to say, or am I appropriating? You let me know in the comments.
Whatever. I'm just coming out hetero.
Coming out of the spider closet. So Miles comes out of the spider closet to Peter. So I don't know. Does someone else want to break down the scene? I feel like I've been talking a lot. Who else wants to talk about this nice little moment between Peter and Miles?
The funny thing happens that where Peter Parker doesn't want to see Miles take off his clothes, and it looks like he's about to, but then he does it, and he jumps
thinks
on
he's
the
talking
ceiling.
about puberty.
Yeah, he thinks that he's going through puberty, and he's not. I mean, we don't need to break it down second for second, but it's just like you think that Miles is going through puberty, and he's not, and that he's about to pull off his underpants.
But then he flips upside down and sticks to the ceiling, and he says, "Pretty weird, right?" And then Peter does the same thing and goes, "Not that weird." Why do you think Miles told Peter? Why not his mom or like one of his friends, or like why did Miles tell Peter? Why do you guys think?
I was curious about the same thing.
Do you guys have any thoughts? I have a thought. It's a little bit of
I think he just respected him.
Yeah,
and he's the male figure he looked up to at that.
Yeah, I have a reaching thought as well of just why he wouldn't tell his friends or family. I think Peter is at the perfect distance away from him personally, but still close enough where there's a level of trust there. But still, it seems a little weird. Like, hey, watch me flip up onto the steel ceiling, and it seems like a pretty big one.
So my thought is, sorry, Lundy, you look like you're going to say something. You go first.
I was just going to say, I think that Miles has an idea. I don't think that he knows that Peter is Spider-Man, but I think he has an idea because he obviously knows that Peter and MJ are close, and he previously had asked MJ if she's Spider-Man's girlfriend. And then
she called him, and then MJ calls Miles Sherlock, confirming that he had deduced something.
Right. So Miles, it's established he's a really smart kid. And so I think that he suspects, but he, in typical teenage fashion, he's not fully sure. He's still a little bit nervous and and so I think that also, I think Tucker's completely right that Peter is at that right distance where it's not such a close personal connection that he's putting Peter in danger, but it is close enough that it's a position of trust, and he can be like, hey, this is going on and it's kind of weird. And I think that, the way that he displays that, like, by flipping up and sticking to the ceiling, is his way of, like, test, like, if he didn't think that Peter was Spider-Man, he'd probably just say, like, hey, like, he'd probably, like, explain it instead of just showing, or at least try to, And so I think by him jumping up and doing that, he doesn't really have a super surprised face when Peter responds in kind.
It's almost like I knew it kind of a face.
Yeah.
No, that was my thought too, Lundy, is I thought that maybe Miles suspected, and that he was like, well, if I go and I do this, and he does, like, confides in me similarly, then great, we both know. And if he doesn't, then Peter's still a trustworthy guy, and he probably won't tell anybody. Like, so it's kind of like a win-win. But that's kind of the vibe I got, is that Miles suspected that Peter was Spider-Man.
Well, and there was the connection that I thought was maybe possible, where, like, he just got back together with MJ, and he thought, hey, are you MJ and Spider-Man dating, or, like, halfway through the game? So, like, there's that possible connection at this point.
Yeah. So I think that Miles at least had a suspicion. I don't know if he outright knew, but he's not a dumb kid. He's smart. I'm not dumb. I'm smart.
I'm not. There it is. Yeah.
So, So that's a nice little scene there, setting up for the next Miles Morales game. And then the rest of the credits play out, and then we get one last final credits scene with Norman Osborn in his sneaky space in his penthouse with all of the weird spider terrariums. And
I have no idea what word you just said.
Oh, sorry, terraria. Yeah,
there you go.
Oh,
that's a real word. Yeah.
I felt gross saying that. So he's in his sneaky lab in his office, and then he goes and he reaches up to a tank and he says, "I promise, son, I'll heal you." And then, surprising literally no one who's ever read a single Spider-Man comic, a black gooey venom substance reaches up against like the other side of the glass, and it's like, oh, there's the venom symbiote in there, and he's talking to his son, it's Harry. And so it very, I would say, foreshadows, but it just basically tells you what the next game is going to be about. Venom's going to be in the next game, and it's Harry. Surprise! Like, it's not even a spoiler, because it's just there was no subtle hinting. It was like, this is what's happening.
Yeah. It's not foreshadowing as much as beating you over the head with a shovel.
Yeah. Here's the next story. Yeah. So, and then that's it. We're done. That's all she wrote. We did all this.
Okay,
well, unless
bye.
there's the DLC chapters and stuff, but that's all for the main game.
Turns out I had never played the DLC. I didn't realize you're supposed to manually switch over to those chapters.
Oh, they're good. You should play them.
Yeah.
I am playing them, and they are incredible.
Are we going to talk? I think this is some behind the curtain chat, but, like, I think we're going to do one episode next time, a bonus episode about all of the DLC ones together. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I think we can do it. Just cool. We won't go as, like, in detail about story beats, just kind of talk
general overarching. Yeah. And there's some fun conversations between Peter and Miles, which are good to talk about. But yeah, we won't go in as in depth. I think we'll squeeze all 3 DLC chapters into one episode.
Yeah. All right, so now that we're done with the story, I want to get into some broad strokes. Let's discuss the ethos of Spider-Man, because I think that's kind of how we can delineate what makes Spider-Man interesting to us and what makes him, in my opinion, better and more durable as an IP among other superhero IP, because clearly he is the most profitable and evergreen, because they keep rebooting him and it keeps pulling people back into the theaters, regardless of how many times they do it. So the ethos of Spider-Man, what are the things that make Spider-Man interesting? And I think I've distilled it down into a few buckets. So responsibility over self-interest. We kept coming back to this concept, where self-interest would be his Peter Parker life, and responsibility would be Spider-Man. And I did already hit on, like, he doesn't really want to be Spider-Man, but he has to keep sacrificing Peter Parker for Spider-Man, because it is a great responsibility that he has. And so it's just, yeah. so anyway, I don't know that we have to like dig into that one already because we already talked about it like
we've done a lot of digging into that already.
All right.
But it is one of the things I personally find most appealing about Spider-Man. That's one of the things I love the most about him.
Yes.
Yeah,
All
as a people pleaser, it really strikes a chord with me. Just I will sacrifice anything to please somebody else.
There you go. It is a real issue for some people. My wife has that problem, and I've had to kind of explain to her that, you know, to care about yourself over other people, and especially if those people aren't worth caring about. And we found some balance in that, but she's had to force me to care about people a little bit more. So
you guys meet each other in the middle.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. So another one that I have found is resilience in adversity. Spider-Man is one of the most resilient characters I can think of. Maybe Captain America's up there as well.
Well, he can do this all day.
He can do this all GD day. But Spider-Man, his resilience in adversity, his adversity is always great personal stakes. So although someone like a Captain America always has great adversity, they're always just really heightened stakes, and he's just always constantly being pummeled. But like Spider-Man's constantly losing friends and family,
or having friends and family turn into villains that try to murder him.
Yeah, exactly. His life is being torn down around him, and he has to keep going. He's losing his apartment, he's losing his girlfriend, he's losing his family, and he has to keep going, because if there is a problem that he is capable of solving as Spider-Man, he has to do it. That is his absolutism.
Well, it's like that not a saying, but like kind of a trope we see in movies. It's just like, all right, we're going to do this thing. Is like, but how do you know we're going to do it? Because we have to. It's like, it's kind of cheesy, but like, that's a Spider-Man thing. It's like, how do you know you're going to get this done? Because I have to. And Spider-Man, that's like, he has to. He just has to keep going. He has to be able to do it. And so he does.
And this is like a visual that, like, you think of Spider-Man in adversity in comics and in movies. Eric, you were alluding to one of the most iconic frames in Spider-Man comic book history, and it's that moment where he's in rubble, he's torn to shreds, and
I'm going to send a picture of it to Emily so she can put it up in the episode while it's playing. Okay, it's so good.
And that's like, sounds like it's what was directly lifted off the pages for Spider-Man 2 when he's fighting Doc Ock in that scene, and that's the moment I'm thinking of when I think of Spider-Man in adversity, or the moment where he's being ripped apart by the subway and he has to, thwip the sides of the building. I think of like Tom Holland when he's like pulling together the boat and that's falling apart. Like, he has this incredible feat of strength, and he has some of the greatest demonstration of like his body almost physically being torn apart, and they are so good at demonstrating that that physical durability that he has to keep going, because there's no amount of like, I will just let go and let somebody die instead of me. And this, it's also the bridge scene. Like, it's the choreography of like, I have to save 100 people at the same time on the bridge scenes and whatever. Like, they have to show that he is doing 1,000 different variables at the same time because he has to.
Something that happens over and over again in all Spider-Man media is overcoming incredible odds because he has to. Yeah.
There's no alternative. And he's always torn to shreds by the end. So that is just something that like I feel like is done better in Spider-Man than any other superhero. And so that is what makes him timeless. Okay, so another ethos of Spider-Man is he's the everyman hero. I think this is absolutely critical to his character. No other superhero is as relatable as Spider-Man. He is ground level. He is in high school most of the time. And so his personal stakes are the most relatable of any superhero. He is not fighting galactic threats all the time. He is going to prom. He is trying to not break up with his girlfriend. He is, trying
to afford rent and.
Yep.
Yeah.
Send these flowers to JJ.
These are all things that we are dealing with. I can't relate to Captain America. I can't relate to Superman. Superman's the least relatable. So it is very hard to write Superman well on.
You guys ever get your red undies just Superman pulled up a little too tight? Well.
Yeah.
That's my Superman exactly. Relatability.
Well, yeah, that's about as far as the relatability goes with Superman. Well, we've all worn red underwear, right?
Superman, Man of Steel was best written when they finally figured out that his greatest vulnerability was when they wrote emotional stakes. But when his stakes are kryptonite, nobody gives a shit about Superman.
Yeah, I've long felt that Superman. I think he's boring. He's not my favorite. Yeah, just not a. He doesn't have that everyman quality. He's hard to relate to. He's a good, fun power fantasy that can, is fun in its own little way, but it doesn't click with me.
He's escapism, and he is fantastic for the ethos of Americana. But as far as pathos and caring about like the relatability, like he will never be as deeply nostalgic as a Spider-Man, and I will never feel like he will tell my story. So yeah, anybody want to elaborate on that in any way? Like I feel like that's why like they can tell Spider-Man's story 100 times, because they can just keep telling like they can tell the villain story. What, like, I don't care what the villain story is. It's what the secondary story is. It's what his personal story is that relates to the villain story that we keep coming back for.
Well, that was kind of like the sales pitch that Stanley came up with for, like, Stanley and Steve Ditko came up with for Spider-Man, that it was like, oh, he's the everyman. He's a teenager. He goes to high school. He's picked on. He's a nerd. Like, which is all things that people who read comic books can probably identify with. And not that we're all nerds, but you know what I'm saying, where it's like there's a lot of overlap there. And so he pitched it to the publisher, and the publisher was like, teenagers can only be sidekicks. He can't be a nerd. He has to be like a big, strong, like hero man. And then so Stanley wrote him into the last issue. They were doing a series called Amazing Fantasy, and they were about to kill a series. And in the last issue of a series, you can kind of do whatever you want because they're about to kill the series anyways. And so he's like, fine, I'll put Spider-Man in this series just to like get it out of my system, and then I won't have to think about it anymore. And then the Amazing Fantasy 16, which is Spider-Man's first appearance, sold like crazy. Everybody loved Spider-Man. And so then the publisher came to Stanley and Steve Ditko and was like, hey, do you remember that Spider-Man character that we both love so much? You should do more of that. So it's like, so that was the ethos, the idea behind Spider-Man, is that he was an unconventional hero, that he had to worry about paying his bills. He was a nerd. He was picked on. He wore glasses. He had to go to school, like things that people can relate with. That was the idea that birthed Spider-Man, was that he was all those things. So it's no coincidence that that's a core pillar of what Spider-Man is.
Well, and it's not even just like relating to our problems, but it's also the romanticism of somebody who does have powers caring about the everyman still. Because once you get to the level of an Iron Man or a Captain America, they have the commensurate power to go after galactic threats, and they stop caring about the everyman. And so you stop seeing them protect us everyday folk. And although it is something that they are caring about generally, and we are being protected, you don't see that. Whereas Spider-Man, he's like constantly swinging down to the ground level and helping people that are being mugged and being like it's always the ground level thing. He can go off and fight like the biggest threat in the city, and then he'll go down and stop somebody whose car is being stolen. Like every single crime matters to him. Every single person is not too small for him.
I do want to push back just a little bit on the idea that Captain America doesn't care about.
As soon as Shan started throwing any shade at Captain America, I was like, Lundy's going to have something to say.
I'm just saying.
I'm on board.
Tell me his stories. Are you telling me his stories constantly are telling those ground level stories?
So they're not telling.
I'm not saying he doesn't care. It doesn't constantly tell those stories.
Right. It doesn't tell the stories, and it doesn't show him. Like he's not a street level hero, and I will admit to that. But it is established as canon that Captain America remembers every single person that he's interacted with. He has that
but
perfect.
That's not really the argument I'm making. I probably articulated it incorrectly.
There's a comic where he showed up to just some random veteran's funeral. Like, took time out of his day fighting crime and everything like that to go to a veteran's funeral to pay his respects to this man who had served, with him in World War II. This guy had just lived a normal life. It was, decades later, and Captain America stepped away to go pay his respects and talk to this family, and all these people there are like, oh, it's Captain, and he's like, no, like, I'm not here for, like, don't pay attention to me, like, this is this man's family, like, this is their time, and, like, told stories to that family about his experience serving with him, and said, he remembers every person that he has ever served alongside, whether they lived or died. He remembers things about them. And so Captain America, like, it's not the ground level. We're not getting the stories that are, like, showing him care about those things. But, like, different than Iron Man, because Iron Man, I agree, is like, oh, this is the greater good, and he doesn't think about the individual, Captain America is focused on the individual while serving the greater good at all times, because that's just who he is at his core.
All right. Next pillar. No, I agree. I articulated incorrectly, but the greater point that I was making is that he never breaks ground level interaction, whereas others have powers so great that they stay at a higher level and they never go back down.
He's got a couple things here and there that are ground level, but not often.
Okay. Okay. So another pillar, uncompromising morality. We have several characters that have a moral code, but that's a part of Spider-Man. And then Spider-Man always has victory at cost, and it's usually personal cost. It's basically always personal cost. That I don't think you can write a Spider-Man story that understands Spider-Man without it coming at personal cost.
The endings are a good Spider-Man ending is bittersweet, usually more sweet than bitter, but it's like Spider-Man triumphs, but there's always at least a little something that he lost along the way, or that, that someone close to him lost, or like, and I think that grounds it in reality, because it's very rare to like just have 100% victory and like, yes, everything is perfect. And, sometimes you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet or whatever. But like Spider-Man obviously is not looking for collateral damage along the way, but like usually things cost. His victories aren't free. They cost something. So
there's no pure happy ending, or, and they lived happily ever after.
Yeah, so many superheroes get that, and he never gets.
Which, I totally agree with Eric. Like, it grounds it in reality of whenever, we as human beings experience some sort of win in life, there's usually some sacrifice that had to be given along the way. Whether that's personal, whether that's somebody around us gets hurt, or whatever that looks like, is, with good, there's always some bad that comes with it.
Well, and I think also just like the pain that we see him endure in every single entry, in every story that we see, is what just makes him like constantly lovable, because we have to go through those emotions with every iteration of his character. We feel every version of Spider-Man's pain, whereas like if you see other superheroes not enduring pain, then why the shit would you care about them?
Well, and it's pain that's relatable.
Mhm.
Like, you know, I don't know, when Eric was
Personal
going through
stakes, yeah.
Yeah, with Aunt May's death, like I was tearing up as he was talking about it, like feeling that emotion. You know, it's, you know, he has physical pain. I don't know what it feels like to have a robot arm smashing my face into concrete, you know, but I do know what it feels like, you know, to have somebody you love be hurt, or, you know, lose somebody that you love. Like those are things that are relatable. I think that's what, you know, why Spider-Man is so evergreen, is because those losses are always something that is relatable to anybody at any level.
Yeah, his battles and confrontations are physical, but his losses are usually emotional, which is why they resonate with people. So exactly what Tucker said, those emotional losses resonate with the people who read them, because most people in life have experienced some kind of emotional loss or grief. And if you haven't, like that everyone has in some way or another.
Well, the thing is, it doesn't even have to be huge. It's like, oh, I know what it's like to not, you know, be worried about rent, you know, type of things. Yeah.
Or big things where it's like, I know what it's like to lose someone that I love, or I know what it's like to struggle to pay my rent. You know, I know what it's like to break up with my girlfriend or my boyfriend. And Spider-Man, you know, embodies all of those things at one point or another. And so he's just an incredibly relatable character, because his emotional trials are very similar to trials that most regular people experience.
Yeah. Also, I think this is like a secret formula that Spider-Man has, but like Aunt May dying, she is a mother by adoption and he is a son by adoption. If you see a mother die on screen, I don't think it's as powerful as his aunt dying on screen, because he had to choose to love her as equally as a mother, and it's almost like more endearing than a mother by like, I'm not saying it's as literally more painful than a mother dying, but just by it being
as a storytelling device. I see what you're trying to say.
But like the fact that they had to learn to love and grow together by choice, and adopt each other as a surrogate family, it's like it feels more painful that he has lost an adopted mother now. And I just that's my opinion, but I feel like,
and I don't think it's just the adopted mother. I think it's he's losing his mother again. He already lost his mom
that's
once.
A good point.
You know, so it's this extra pain on top of that, and this all background of this is, you know, I mean, even the Uncle Ben, you know, dying 1,000 different times in all these different
in 1,000 different universes,
in 1,000 different universes, like that still hits hard, because it's one of his parents that he doesn't have a backup. You know what I mean? Like there's a backup's not the right word. But
I get what you're trying to say.
Yeah, like this is it. Like he's already lost his dad, and then this person comes in to be a father figure, and he has to lose him all over again. And he experiences that with May, and it's just so heart wrenching. And like the Tom Holland movies does it really well when that Aunt May dies as well. It's a very similar like heart wrenching thing.
Well, and like there's also like a special significance to like, they took care of him when he was orphaned, and so the moral character of an Aunt May and Uncle Ben, like, and then to have somebody of that stature die, it's like that is a human being that you don't want to lose. They are too significant.
It's not some meth dealing, you know, mom. It's you know,
like on Breaking Bad with the ATM.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, that's dark. Okay, so we've gone through the ethos of Spider-Man and what kind of distinguishes Spider-Man from other IP, which was another thing I wanted to get at, but we kind of wrapped it all together. Okay, and what makes Spider-Man at his best story-wise? So I've tied that in as well. And what makes Mary Jane the best for him? So, gosh, I've gotten to all these great things that I wanted to get at
a little bit in other episodes too, but
Okay, so now that we're getting to the end of the time, I had like another question where I was gonna have us play through the alternate timeline where he saves Aunt May instead of Manhattan, and just kind of like,
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked. I think Aunt May would have resented him for it.
I know, but it would have been funny to just kind of improvise about it.
I mean, sure. I don't know.
But so
Aunt May says, wait a minute, you did what? And then all of New York just dies from basically the plague.
Yeah, so it plays out exactly like The Last of Us does. Is Peter is Joel.
There you go.
Ellie is Aunt May. That's just the flip side of it. Then there grows big resentment. Aunt May turns into a lesbian. And,
The only difference is the number of Firefly bodies left in the wake. Yeah.
Here's the thing. J. Jonah Jameson survives, and he becomes incredibly influential because he's very correct about Spider-Man at this point for being a villain. Because he has just caused a pandemic that has wiped out Manhattan that is spreading throughout the entire world. J. Jonah Jameson becomes so influential that he is elected president, and it just gets really dark from here. He's a podcast influencer, and he goes full conspiratorial. He radicalizes the entire United States, declares martial law. It gets dark.
It turns into The Incredibles, where supers are outlawed, and
and that's what happens if Peter saves Aunt May. Is the whole world ends. It causes a butterfly effect that dooms the planet.
And Aunt May hates Spider-Man forever, but she's alive, so
Yeah, what does she have to
all right about? Final question: kill, marry, bang, or sidekick? Who would you choose for each iteration of Mary Jane? And we have the 3 movies and the video game.
I'm uncomfortable answering this question as a married man.
Doesn't matter.
And the fact that at least in some of them, at least in the first couple, the first 3 in all of the Tom Holland movies, she's a minor, so
she was acted out by an adult.
And there isn't a Mary Jane in the Andrew Garfield movies.
There isn't.
It's Gwen Stacy.
Okay, so you have to choose Emma Stone. And even though they acted in high school, they were adults, but you could choose their actual adult selves in real life.
So I forgot what the other ones were, but I want to marry Emma Stone. That's the choice.
That's the obvious one. I think so
about.
too.
Yeah.
That was obvious to me too, because Emma Stone is incredibly charming as a human being.
And like you said, she's got chemistry with a brick. She can have chemistry with anybody. She's just
she has
very cool lady.
2 Oscars.
There you go. She could share them, one for each of you.
Did you see her in La La Land? I would marry that woman.
So I
don't know
about the other ones.
You have to kind of choose.
So I mean, the other ones, Kirsten Dunst is cute, but never really did it for me.
Should probably be Kill.
Yeah,
kind of
probably.
dark,
it's unfortunate. Not anything against her. She's just
the lowest of the totem pole.
And I think Sidekick is probably the video game version of Mary Jane because she's very capable and would make a useful sidekick. Yeah.
And then Zendaya, who is an adult in the film,
would be the
life.
leftover option. She can
bang or marry. You'd have to choose.
Well, I did marry for Emma Stone, so.
Yeah. So hold on.
So
does Zendaya have the same skills?
It feels weird.
Does Zendaya have the same skills that she has in the Dune?
Okay, but then what would you do with the Mary Jane?
No, you're talking about
game?
Zendaya now, and not
bang
MJ
her
as a character. Yeah.
All right, but I had a follow-up question. Now you have to do the same thing with Aunt May.
So I would bang Rosemary Harris.
Obviously.
Oh, that's the obvious choice.
No, for me it's bang Marissa Tomei. That was obvious.
Yeah.
You kill Rosemary
over Rosemary. Come on, she's a babe.
You can tell that she was pretty once. It's in the eyes.
Yeah.
I've never seen a film where she was pretty, and it was that one film.
She says the Lord's Prayer every night before she goes to bed, so she's a good.
Pretty sure she was the baby in Rosemary's Baby. Wait, that doesn't even make any sense.
No, she would be Rosemary.
No coherent
You sound
sense.
insane right now, Shan.
Yeah.
She was Rosemary in Rosemary's Baby. She was the baby and Rosemary. Yeah, she played both roles. Also, terrible film. Nobody watched that film.
Oh, so
Tucker and I watched it.
Yeah, it was not what I was expecting. I don't know how they made it in that time period, but it is, makes you fear, cults and apartment
babies
people
and people named Rosemary
and Satan raping you.
Yeah,
What?
and it makes me understand why.
Go watch Rosemary's Baby.
No, I don't think that I will. Just based on that one thing that you said, I'm pretty turned off from the idea forever.
Yeah, hard pass.
Also, now I understand why everybody hates Roman Polanski. It's because of that movie, I'm pretty sure. Okay, nobody understands that reference.
I don't know what you're talking
Let's
about.
move on. All right, so we have Rosemary, and we have Marissa Tomei out of the way. Now we have Sally Field, and we have this woman from Marvel.
I mean,
Spider-Man.
I would marry video game Insomniac.
Yeah, she's such a nice lady.
Okay, so Sally Field is your sidekick?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, why not?
She'd be a spunky sidekick.
Well, because they were planning on doing a spin-off movie about her where she was like secretly a spy, so
It
my
got
gosh,
really
really?
weird. Yeah.
I didn't know
that was something
That's
that was in
ridiculous.
development before they
And
decided
then they
to partner
decided
with
to
the
make
MCU.
Morbius instead, yeah. Which
That
might have been a
panned
better
out,
option.
Okay, well, that does it for my questions then. I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, I'd like to strike all of that from the record. Can we just cut all of this, please? this
I'm
could
going
just be
to
for us.
cut out your answers. I'm going to put it on loop, and I'm going to put it on the TikTok.
Perfect. That's exactly what I want. Please don't put this on TikTok.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for the Sad Dad Game podcast for Spider-Man. We are going to do the City Never Sleeps DLC next, and then we're going to move on to what comes after Spider-Man. Did we decide?
Do we want to tell people, or do we want to titillate them and make them guess and wait?
I love the tittles, but
Well, we're Majora's Mask is next, right?
yeah, that's right. It's Majora's
Spoiler
Mask.
alert. Yeah.
And then
Majora's
maybe
Mask.
it's Death Stranding. We haven't
Or
locked it
we're
in.
still figuring it out. We're trying to decide
Yeah.
if Death Stranding is too weird. We thought maybe Spider-Man would bring in more people because of its normalness, but that's not working out. So maybe you guys want
Hey,
weird
we got
stuff.
2
We don't know.
subscribers.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did.
we did. So
But if
Who
anything
knows?
needs to be talked about, it's Death Stranding.
yeah,
We need to dissect Kojima's mind, and
I don't know if anyone can. That man is absolutely bonkers. And
We should send an
sorry,
email, see if we can get him on the podcast. More he can say
He
is
might.
no.
He's a weird dude. Who knows?
You know, who knows?
but it's like I need to figure out that game before the second one comes out, because I only understood the superficial stuff by the time I finished it the first time.
I still don't understand any of it. They're all confusing to me.
Over
Yeah.
it.
Oh my gosh, I could not get over it.
I just
I
dismissed it as like it's a character choice, even though I
Yeah.
knew he was a bad actor.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, like I
It's like when you
dumps
cast. It's like an Adam
that-
Sandler movie when he just casts all of his friends. You know?
No, those are Oscar worthy compared to Guillermo del Toro. and Death Stranding.
Yeah, why do you cast a director as an actor? Like who made?
Well,
like
because Kojima loves movies, and so he
Yeah, that's
really
I don't know.
respects.
Maybe
movies.
pick an actor
Yeah.
then.
Listen. I'm telling you the reason. I'm not defending it. That's why he did it.
so let's pick Troy Baker and Guillermo del Toro. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
perfect.
our cast. All right. Well, okay, that's it. All right, we're done. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Outro. Bleep-a-doof, bleep-a-deep, bloopity-blow.